Please welcome to the stage Karen Vellensky.
It is the destruction of the world in our own lives that drives us half insane and more than half. To destroy that which we were given in trust. How will we bear it? Wendell Berry. Thank you for being here. My name is Karen Vellensky, and I've been looking forward to presenting to you Good Grief, Inducing Eco-Anxiety as a Call to Climate Action. Nearly 3 decades ago, poet Wendell Berry presciently tapped into a conversation that's been gaining momentum over the past 10 years about the anxiety caused by climate change. In the emerging field of eco-psychology, eco-anxiety is understood as an indirect mental health impact of climate change marked by an existential worry about the future of oneself, children, and later generations. It's part of a lexicon of both positive and negative mental health, Earth-related mental states called psychoterratica. These terms were aggregated by the philosopher Glenn Albrecht, who's also responsible for coining some of them. Just weeks ago, the American Psychological Association officially recognized the mental health impacts of climate change. The report claims that responses like anger, fear, and helplessness are preventing us from effectively responding to the threat of climate change. And that seems like a completely logical conclusion, unless maybe it isn't. In an insight of absurd intelligence, psychologist Per Espen Stoknes suggests that these feelings can be useful. He writes, "The paradoxes behind all that despair, we may find a renewed way of caring for the land, air, ourselves, and others. We may shift gradually from a helpless depression to a heartfelt appreciation and re-engagement." And he's onto something. According to an article published in the Psychological Review by researchers Paul W. Andrews and J. Anderson Thompson Jr., depression is not a malfunction, but a beneficial mental adaptation that allows the mind to ruminate or concentrate on complex emotional problems. Join me on this limb. Maybe we're feeling anxious and depressed about climate change because it's actually really sad and scary. Why shouldn't we allow ourselves to feel something real about our impending doom? The challenges to allowing ourselves to feel that grief is to overcome what Stoknes calls the 5 Ds, cognitive barriers that we use to resist the climate message. That may seem impossible, but more and more Americans accept the scientific data on climate change. In the work to follow, I will be focusing on the groups identified as concerned or cautious about climate change. That's nearly 60% of the population. Working with people who are receptive to the climate message means there are less barriers to overcome. I'm trying to induce eco-anxiety to force people out of their apathy, making them more likely to take action on climate change. The work in this thesis is the first step of 6 towards climate change mitigation. A reframed narrative around climate change that centers the human experience builds public support for national climate action, which drives lawmakers to pass sensible climate change policy. That results in the complete conversion to renewable energy sources, which in turn leads to our best chance at climate change mitigation. Simple. But in all seriousness, how can we even get anyone to want to care, let alone be willingly sad? Well, many of the climate activists who I spoke with echoed the importance of storytelling in catching and keeping people's attention focused on a social cause. For example, shows like Will and Grace, Modern Family, and Glee have all been credited in influencing public support for marriage equality, which jumped 20 percentage points in a matter of 10 years. So I explored different ways of creating or receiving stories of climate change and environmentalism. The following design interactions leverage 4 different methodologies to create moments that allow the audience to experience climate-related distress. First up is Divergence. Claire Donahue, the founder of the Sane Energy Project, said, "At the point where we stand now is a divergence. In respect to climate change, we can go down the road of continuation of the status quo, which leads to rubble, or we can turn off to another path where we can build the road as we travel on it." Last October, I brought together 12 people with differing opinions about how to respond to the climate crisis to collaborate about the kind of future we all want to live in. I asked the participants the following question. What is the story of where we ought to go? What is a society worth living and dying for? The participants shared one sentence at a time, and after the story was completed, illustrated the scenes into a long narrative mural. The story illustrated a difficult but successful path to climate rehabilitation, starting with a feminist takeover and ending in benevolent intergalactic colonization. The following is a short excerpt.
I just found an old photograph from 2016.
Back then, most environmentalists simply talked.
The feminine energies were rising both in seats of power and in the grassroots.
Those were amateur storytellers, but we can also create professional networks of people who are already aggregating stories around climate change, like journalists and documentarians. So I envisioned Biofile, a documentary podcast that emphasizes the connection between people and the land by featuring ordinary people already feeling the effects of climate change. We tell the story of climate change from a human perspective. It's like if This American Life and AJ Plus had a baby who's really into environmentalism. Biofile links the global network of producers who source a story with an environmental angle told through the lens of a person from that place. The story is then published on the Biofile Weekly podcast, and subscribers are invited to share audio clips on social media. The stories are named after their subject. For example, Beth Ann is about a woman from Lambertville, New Jersey, who's concerned about fracking contaminating the waters of the Delaware River. Biofile licenses short-format video versions of content to news agencies covering environmental stories to supplement related reporting. The strategy generates income, reaches a broader audience, and reinforces the human-centered narrative around climate change where people get their news. We can also directly empower individuals who have their own stories to share them through peer-to-peer platforms. At a solidarity rally for Standing Rock, one of the speakers said something that got stuck in my head. We have to protect the memory of the land. And I sat there thinking, what does the land remember that we have forgotten? As our homes and landscapes change so quickly throughout our lifetimes, how can we memorialize and find solace in the memory of places that are special to us? Patina is a living eulogy, an ever-growing tribute to the sights, sounds, and experiences that we have lost or will lose on our only home, Earth. In this user journey, we see Keisha in the year 2096 out for a morning row around Coney Shallows. She takes a break and checks what's available on Patina at this geolocation and finds memories of the old boardwalk and rides. Keisha adds a photo of the beautiful sunrise. Patina is a digital memorial comprised of photographs, video, and audio tied to the geolocation of the user. The timeline feature puts into high contrast the tangible changes to the user's environment over time. Content is user-generated, however, posts are made public only after 10 years have passed. Patina memorializes what we have lost as a result of climate change. The competitive landscape for Patina is populated with apps that archive or provide live feeds of personal or scientific content. Only Patina is poised to archive personal content that documents the change in our surrounding landscapes, leaving a trail of digital breadcrumbs for future generations of what was. Finally, it's important not only to work on creating and sharing these stories, but to think about how to amplify their impact through designing new ways of receiving them. The distinguished design thinker John Thackara told me to emphasize the places where people already are that are important to them. With this in mind, I created Flourish, an interactive installation dealing with themes around place, memory, and heritage. Guests are invited to take a break from the busy pace of their everyday inside a garden planted with memories of favorite and important places. Let's take a look.
I remember the island from an early age. My mother tells me that at 3 months old, when put in the river water, that my legs and arms acted like I was trying to swim. I would spend every June, July, and August there, an island in the middle of a great river, just surrounded by trees and fireplaces that were outside where we used to cook. There was lattice work next to a beautifully aroma tree. It just smelled so great. It was a wonderful experience, and it helped me to learn my love of water and of boats and of swimming and of my family.
Thank you to the faculty, staff, and students at POD for your guidance, care, and solidarity. To my parents whose love and support has no bounds, and to my partner Asaf, אני אוהבת אותך ולא יכולתי לעשות את כל זה בלעדיך. Thank you.
I was at Flourish, and it was unbelievably beautiful. And it was sad, and it was happy, and it was remarkable that you were able to find a sweet spot between those two. And it was your orchestration of the experience, but it was our experience of it. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
So you have a bonus track. You are wearing something around your neck today.
Yes, so this is my project for our featuring product development class.
You know what, let me interrupt you. People have like these beautiful photographs all day. Do we have a beautiful photograph of this?
We have a beautiful
All right.
photograph. Hit it, Marco.
And it's got a brand. Oh, one back. There you go.
Okay, so this is Carbon Letter, and the idea behind this is that it exists within our lived dystopia, about a year into the future, where Trump mandates that we all have to start wearing these as a compromise with Ivanka. And it symbolizes your carbon footprint. And yes, you buy it through Ivanka's jewelry line.
And it's concrete?
Yeah, it's concrete, and what you may not know is that all concrete is carbon sequestering. So as you wear it, you are symbolically helping clean the air.
And jokes aside, it is very heavy, and you are wearing it literally around your neck.
Yeah, I
It's
call
a
it
constant reminder.
part morning jewelry, part casual self-flagellation.
Okay. The tension between personal action, collective action, governmental action, you decided to restrict the focus with your beautiful theories of change slide to the personal. After a year of working on this, does it make sense to you that that's what's actually going to happen for people to essentially wake up and act?
Yeah, I think that over the past couple months, we've seen like an awakening of re-engagement with people who probably a year ago would not have considered themselves political getting involved. And I think that when governments feel the eyes of their constituents on them, they respond.
Another hopeful message for today. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.